Great friend of the broadcast, Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee is joining us now. And Senator Hagerty, I know, has been a very busy first week in Washington, D.C. I got to see a couple of times, but now the Senate is right to work and on these, especially on getting President Trump's nominees confirmed. We're hearing that Pete Hegseth could be up for a vote pretty soon for Secretary of Defense. Any timing on that right now?
Right now, the timing looks like about 8:30, 9 p.m. tonight. That's the current state of play. I should make note, Jordan, that the Democrats have done everything they can to slow this process down, throwing every procedural roadblock in our way that they possibly can. Leader John Thune has basically said, if that's the case, we're just going to stay here all weekend. And that's my plan, to be here into the wee hours of the night, Sunday morning. Through Monday morning, we're just going to stay right through and keep doing this. The Democrats want to grind this out. It's their procedural ability to do that that is slowing down President Trump's ability to get at the problems that face our nation. And let's just step back for a minute and realize and remember that 75% of the American public felt that the nation was on the wrong track right before Election Day in November. They cast their votes. President Trump won a landslide electoral victory. He won every single battleground state. He won a majority of the popular vote. I would think the message should be loud and clear to Democrats, but that doesn't seem to faze them here in Washington. The resistance movement seems to be in full force. We have only 2 members of President Trump's cabinet confirmed at this point in time. Here we are, Friday afternoon. At this time, in his previous administration, the day one, he already had 2 members of his cabinet appointed. You look at President Obama's administration, a dozen members of his cabinet in the first 15 days. Joe Biden did better than this. They are really pulling out all the stops to try to frustrate President Trump here in his second term.
And we know, Senator Hagerty, that when that is done, it takes that much longer for those departments to get up to speed because they don't have their directors, they don't have their deputies, which are also important, who have to get confirmed. And so you're going to have to rely on the bureaucrats to carry the weight of any kind of lawsuits that come in or policy issues that come in. And so you're not being able to rely on your team yet in these departments. You're waiting to get them there. You're relying on the federal bureaucracy, which we know is overwhelmingly not very supportive of President Trump's policies.
Well, that certainly became clear to us in President Trump's first term. As you know, I served in his administration. The deep state is real. The frustration and the issues associated with that, something that President Trump has had 4 years to think about while he was preparing his comeback. And I think that the deep state bureaucracy is on notice right now that this sort of behavior is not going to be tolerated anymore. You've got a lot of people here in the Washington areas of the federal government who aren't even showing up to work, Jordan. It's shameful, I think. And at best, what we were hearing is that people were coming in 2 days per pay period, 4 days per month. That is absolutely unacceptable for the American public. American taxpayers expect to get value for their dollar. I certainly, in an oversight capacity, will make certain that that happens. Now that Republicans have the gavel here in the Senate, we can hold these people to account.
We've had these bizarre stories, Senator Hagerty, where, like someone gets contacted by the IRS and maybe it's just a random audit, nothing wrong with that. But the person conducting the audit is definitely at home. You hear dogs barking. They're giving you fax numbers, and you're like, wait, I'm faxing you confidential tax records to your house? I mean, that's not even really how this is supposed to work at all. And yet, again, this is what this is normal practice as we speak today, not like 3 years ago or 4 years ago when, with COVID raging. This is what you're dealing with right now. If you're getting a call and you start working with any of these agencies, a lot of the times they're saying, well, can you send it to this email address because I couldn't get the full file on my work one? And can you use my at-home fax machine? I mean, it's very real what you're talking about, that, well, Washington, D.C. and downtown D.C., which is where the corporations are, people are at work. But the federal government, the largest employer in Washington, D.C., you look into those buildings and you see a lot of empty desks.
That's absolutely the case. One thing is very interesting, though, Jordan, that I've seen since the November 5th election, and particularly since President Trump announced the Department of Government Efficiency. The traffic in D.C. has picked up a great deal. It tells me that these federal workers have realized the new sheriff is in town. they better get back to their seats. And so I think we've already begun to see this change. It's interesting how many changes we already saw before President Trump even took office. You think about the progress that we began to make in the Middle East. You think about the European Union stating that perhaps they should supplant Russian LNG with American LNG at this point in time. They didn't figure that out a few years ago after Russia invaded Ukraine. You start seeing, countries like the UK saying they're going to step their defense budget up to 2.5% of GDP. All of this in advance of President Trump taking office. Now that he's here, now that he's in office, it's time to get his cabinet in place to support the extensive change that's necessary. And I think the bureaucracy is on full notice that it's time to change. It's time to get more efficient, and the resistance movement needs to stop.
Senator Hagerty, you're also on the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. And one interesting thing we saw coming out yesterday was, now that there is a new sheriff in town with a new administration and new majorities in the Senate and the House, that some of these big banks that had maybe done some questionable things during the last 4 years are trying to at least publicly do an about face. And we're looking at this issue where people who had conservative leanings or beliefs were debanked by large American banks. And I know this is a concern for you, but I just want to hear from you. What is the path forward on this, and how will the Senate and the Banking Committee specifically hold their feet to the fire, ensure that there's not this discrimination based off political belief by our banking industry, one of the most fundamental industries that Americans have to them?
President Trump called this out. I appreciate you bringing this up. He called this out at the World Economic Forum yesterday when he zoomed into their meeting, and Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, was right there, and he pointed them out by name, saying, "Look, you guys have got to stop this debanking." This goes all the way back to the Obama administration when they instituted Operation Choke Point. What we've seen under the Biden administration is just a renewal of this Operation Choke Point 2.0. But what you have are bank supervisors that might suggest to a bank that they're overseeing, that they're regulating, that there might be some sort of exposure to a particular industry, to a particular client. Even Barron Trump was not able to get a bank account. You think about Christian ministry organizations that have been debanked. I've talked to industry after industry that when they become, quote, politically disfavored, they suddenly become not a client of these large banks. That's got to come to an end. We cannot see discrimination in the bank supervisory regime. That needs to be cleaned up extensively. That lies within the OCC, within the FDIC. We've got considerable work to do at the Fed as well to make certain that we don't have political views permeate the regulation of our banking system. This needs to be the most open, the deepest, and the fairest banking system in the world. It has been. It should continue to be that way. Yet you've had Democrat activists and now bureaucrats get in and try to contort these systems to their own political ends. It's got to come to a stop. And now that we have the gavel here in the Senate, I was going to mention this earlier, under the Democrats, under Sherrod Brown and the Banking Committee, there was never any effort to hold the administration to account, to hold the bureaucracy to account. That's going to change. It is changing right now.
Senator Hagerty, for all the people watching the show right now, and for those listening as well, a lot of them kind of want to know, okay, President Trump's in, we've got the confirmations going. What can they do? And, we've pointed them to some of the confirmations have been tougher and said, call your U.S. senators. But is there a message that you'd want to send to them so that President Trump and you're able to get in, the people that need to be put in place so the Republican Senate and the Republican House can work together with President Trump to start implementing these policies as quickly as possible? Because the American people, they voted for this. They worked hard to get President Trump into office, and now they want to know, what should I do now?
Yeah, well, I think it's a great point, particularly as these cabinet members move through the confirmation process for our viewers and listeners to encourage their representatives to be supportive. The policies that are coming through, a number of the executive orders also require funding. They also will benefit from legislative efforts as well. Stay alert, stay informed, and support those as well. But I'd like to convey this as well, Jordan, a sense of optimism. Yeah. We saw it in President Trump's inaugural speech, a new golden age is opening up. We're going to see our economy thrive and flourish again. We're going to see our military get back to the basics of lethality and effectiveness, get off of the pronouns that they've been focused on at the Defense Department. And what we're going to see is a nation that's respected around the world again. I'm so optimistic about what's going to happen. And the fact that we have the gavel here in the Senate and the House means that we can fully support President Trump in moving our nation back on the right track again.
Well, Senator Hagerty, it's why you're a great friend of the ACLJ, and I'd love to have you on the broadcast. You break down all these issues for our listeners in such a clear way about what they can do, about what's happening right now in Washington, the importance of the different steps we need to take. And I think you'd really assist us through this process. So we'd love to come back to you as these confirmations move forward and we start going into the policies being implemented and the legislation being voted on. So I thank you for taking that time in this very busy week of getting our government back on track for the American people.